Ladies and gentlemen, now I need y'all to lean in close, because what I'm about to say might just set somebody free tonight. See, sometimes in life, and I know y'all know this, you give your heart, your soul, your energy, and what do you get back? Headaches, ghosted texts, confusion, and drama with a capital D. But today we ain't crying. We ain't typing no long paragraph at 2 a.m. We ain't begging nobody to understand our worth. Today we walk away like a queen. No tears, no texts, just that royal silence that says, I know who I am. And I ain't explaining it to nobody. Because a queen doesn't chase, she chooses. A queen doesn't crumble, she rises. So if you're ready to reclaim your crown, your peace, and your power, say it with me. No more drama, just silence and the crown stays on. Silence is strength, not surrender. That's a hard lesson to learn, especially when everything in you wants to respond, react, and retaliate. But silence, real, intentional silence, is a decision. It's a power move. It's not giving up. It's rising above. Because when a queen walks away in silence, she ain't losing. She's leveling up. See, we live in a world that teaches us to clap back. Social media tells you that if someone disrespects you, you better say something and say it loud. Post a quote. Fire off a story. Let them know they messed with the wrong one. But that ain't power. That's reaction. And reaction gives them access. Every time you react, you give someone the power to pull your piece, shift your energy, and steer your emotions. And that's not how a queen moves. A queen knows that silence is the highest form of self-respect. Not because she doesn't have something to say. Oh, she could shut it down with one sentence. But because she knows not everyone deserves a front row seat to her thoughts, not everyone earns the right to hear her truth. Silence, when chosen, is a boundary. It's a shield. It's a statement that says, you're not worth my words. Not in anger, not in pain, just in power. And let's be real, walking away quietly ain't easy. Especially when your pride is bruised, especially when you're misunderstood. When they've twisted the story, blamed you, and then dared to play the victim. Oh, that burns. It's natural to want to set the record straight, to defend yourself, to let them know they didn't break you. But when you walk away without saying a word, you're saying everything. You're saying, I don't need your validation. You're saying, I choose peace over chaos. You're saying, my energy is too sacred to waste on confusion. And the truth is, silence is louder than any text, any call, any explanation. It echoes, it lingers, it leaves them wondering. And people hate to wonder. They want the last word. They want to pull you back into the cycle, into the argument, into the apology dance that never ends. But silence breaks cycles. It stops the madness cold. And it takes a different kind of strength to do that. A deep, mature, disciplined strength that says, I could, but I won't. And don't confuse that with weakness. Weakness is trying to prove your value to someone who's already shown you they don't recognize it. Weakness is begging someone to see you when they've chosen to look away. But strength is standing tall with a quiet heart and walking away like a queen. Strength is trusting that what's for you doesn't need to be forced, and what's not for you shouldn't be chased. Because your silence, when it's chosen, not forced, is a crown. It's you saying, I know who I am, and I won't lower myself to match your chaos. That's not being passive. That's being precise, strategic, controlled. It's refusing to let emotions hijack your destiny. It's putting your future above your feelings. Because temporary emotions can wreck permanent blessings if you let them. And people won't understand it. They'll call you cold, distant. They'll say you're heartless for not responding, for not texting back, for not making a scene. But don't let their confusion pull you out of character. You owe no one an explanation for your peace. Your silence isn't a void. It's a statement, a declaration, a quiet roar that says, I choose me. And choosing you doesn't mean being selfish. It means protecting your mental space. It means refusing to be dragged into emotional quicksand. It means saying, I've done all I can, and now I'm done. Not bitter, not broken, just done. And that kind of exit, that's divine. That's power. When you master silence, you stop being predictable. You stop being manipulated. You stop being drained. People can't push your buttons if you unplug them. They can't twist your words if you never give them any. That's not running away. That's rising out of reach. Because when a queen stops speaking, she starts healing. And healing in silence, That's where the real transformation begins. Your worth isn't up for debate. It never has been, and it never will be. But somewhere along the way, life, people, relationships, failures, disappointments starts whispering lies. Lies that say you're not enough, that you need to be more, do more, prove more just to be seen, heard, or loved. And before you know it, you're performing for approval, negotiating your value, trying to convince people to treat you right, all while forgetting that you were valuable the whole time. Let's make something clear. Your worth is not something someone else decides. It's not up for votes. It's not tied to who stayed, who left, who loved you properly, or who couldn't see your light. It's not attached to your relationship status, your past, or the mistakes you made when you were still trying to figure out who you are. Your worth is yours, solid, constant, untouched by opinions. See, the problem is we give too much weight to the wrong voices. We take people's rejection as a reflection of our value. If someone leaves, we think we must have done something wrong. If they stop calling, we assume we weren't enough. If they choose someone else, we start questioning everything about ourselves. But the truth is, someone else's inability to see your value doesn't decrease it. It only reveals their lack of vision. You are not a clearance item waiting for someone to pick you up at a discount. You are not a backup plan, a second option, or a maybe. And you don't need to remind anyone of your worth because the people who are meant for you, the people who are healthy, whole, and aligned with your growth, they won't need convincing. They'll see it, respect it, protect it. They won't make you beg for basic kindness or chase after what should be given freely. It's time to stop shrinking to fit into places that were never built for your greatness. You don't need to downplay your glow to make someone else comfortable. You don't need to over-explain your boundaries just to be taken seriously. You don't need to prove your loyalty to people who wouldn't even hold space for your truth. Your worth is not a negotiation. It's not something you lower to maintain a connection. If a connection requires you to question yourself or lose yourself, that's not love. That's sacrifice, and it's the wrong kind. You were born valuable before the achievements, before the heartbreak, before the disappointment. That value is already there, built in. It's not measured by your productivity, your appearance, your popularity, or your ability to make everyone else feel okay. It's rooted in your soul. Deep, unshakable, and unmoved by temporary storms. Sometimes you've got to remind yourself that walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing you're not going to argue about your worth one more time. It's knowing you're not sticking around to prove you're lovable. It's knowing that you don't have to audition for the love that's meant for you. Because real love, healthy love, won't make you feel like a question mark. It'll feel like home. So don't dilute yourself for temporary attention. Don't stay silent just to be accepted. Don't tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. Because being alone while knowing your worth is far better than being surrounded by people who constantly make you doubt it. The minute you stop seeking validation, you start stepping into power. When you hold your head high, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect, you start attracting situations that match your value, not challenge it. Your worth is the starting point, not the prize someone else gives you when you've earned enough points in their game. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That right there is freedom. That is peace. That is maturity. Because no matter how carefully you word it, no matter how many times you replay the conversation, no matter how honest, vulnerable, or calm you try to be, some people are not listening to understand you. They're listening to defend their ego, protect their version of the story, or fuel their narrative. And when someone is committed to misunderstanding you, there's no clarity you can offer that will change their mind. They don't want truth. They want control. It's human nature to want to be understood. It feels good to be seen clearly, to be heard without judgment, to explain your side and have someone say, I get it now. But not everyone has the capacity to hear you without their bias getting in the way. Not everyone is emotionally available enough to step outside of their own perspective and truly listen. And trying to force that kind of understanding only leaves you drained, frustrated, and questioning your own truth. You end up rewriting your words, repeating your pain, editing your feelings, all in the hope that this time they'll finally get it. But they won't because they don't want to. When someone is committed to misunderstanding you, It's not just a lack of communication, it's a lack of intention. They have already decided who you are in their story. They've already labeled you, categorized you, and closed the book. You're either the villain in their narrative or the inconvenience they'd rather not deal with. And the more you try to defend yourself, the more you play into their game. They twist your words, weaponize your vulnerability, and use your explanations as proof of guilt. It becomes less about truth and more about control. And here's the thing, you don't owe anyone endless explanations. Your peace does not depend on their understanding. You can forgive someone without them ever getting your side of the story. You can walk away without giving them closure. You can honor your truth without trying to justify it. Because the more you try to explain yourself to someone who refuses to hear you, the more you start believing you have to justify your boundaries, your emotions, your decisions. And that's not healthy. That's not growth. That's emotional entrapment disguised as reconciliation. Letting go of the need to be understood is not the same as giving up. It's choosing to protect your energy. It's realizing that your truth doesn't become less true just because someone else refuses to accept it. It's knowing that sometimes silence is the loudest way to speak. Because when you stop explaining, you stop handing them the power to validate or dismiss your experience. You stand firm in who you are, not who they pretend you are. And yes, it's painful, especially when the people misunderstanding you are the ones you care about most. When it's family, when it's someone you love, when it's someone you trusted, you want to fix it. You want to find the right words. But if they're unwilling to grow, unwilling to reflect, unwilling to meet you halfway, then all your effort turns into self-abandonment. You lose yourself trying to be palatable to people who never had the intention to truly know you in the first place. You don't have to shrink your truth to fit their comfort. You don't have to keep proving that your feelings are valid. The right people will never require you to beg for understanding. They will ask, they will listen, they will care. And those are the only people worthy of your explanations, people who see you not as a problem to solve, but a person to understand. Walking away from the need to be understood is an act of self-love. It's trusting that the people who matter will take the time to understand, and the ones who don't never really matter. It's accepting that not everyone deserves access to your side of the story. It's knowing that your peace, your growth, your healing, none of it depends on someone else finally getting it. It depends on you knowing it, living it, and letting the rest go. Peace over proving a point, every time. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's not giving in, that's choosing out. Because there comes a moment when you realize that not every argument is worth your energy. Not every debate deserves your voice, and not every person has earned the right to hear your truth. The older you get, the more you value peace. Not the fake kind that comes from silence while your soul screams, but the real kind that settles deep in your spirit when you stop fighting battles that no longer serve you. There's a difference between standing up for yourself and exhausting yourself. Exhausting yourself. There's a difference between being right and being at peace. You can win the argument and still lose your sanity. You can make your point and still feel empty when the conversation ends. Sometimes the price of being right is too high. It costs you sleep. It costs you joy. It costs you clarity. And when that cost shows up, you got to ask yourself, is this really worth it? Or am I just feeding my ego? The truth is, most arguments are never about what they seem. They're about control. They're about needing to be seen a certain way. They're about trying to fix something that should have been left broken. But peace doesn't beg to be understood. Peace doesn't shout. Peace walks out of the room, closes the door quietly, and lets the noise die on its own. It's a kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. We're conditioned to believe that silence is weakness. That not responding is admitting defeat. But sometimes, the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Sometimes keeping your peace is the most radical act of self-respect. Because when you've healed, when you've grown, when you've done the inner work, chaos loses its charm. You stop being addicted to the drama. You stop needing the last word. You stop proving yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. There's a quiet confidence that comes from choosing peace. It means you know who you are. It means you've got nothing to prove and everything to protect, especially your energy. And protecting your peace doesn't mean avoiding hard conversation. It means knowing which ones are truly necessary and which ones are just emotional traps dressed up as it talks. Some people don't want resolution. They want reaction. And if you keep stepping into every fire someone lights, you'll keep getting burned. Peace isn't passive, it's active. It's active. It takes strength to bite your tongue. It takes restraint to walk away. It takes clarity to say, this is not worth disturbing my spirit. That's not running. That's choosing. And when you live like that, when you move like that, when you lead with that kind of presence, people notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. Because you refuse to be pulled into chaos when calm is a choice you can make at any moment. A queen's exit is her loudest statement. It doesn't require shouting, slamming doors, or dramatic goodbyes. It doesn't come with explanations, warnings, or second chances. So when a queen walks away, she does it with grace, with power, and with a kind of silence that speaks louder than any final word ever could. Her exit isn't about making noise. It's about making impact. It's about leaving behind the chaos, the disrespect, the confusion, and choosing herself without needing applause for it. Some people think strength is in staying. They believe endurance means holding on, fighting hard, or sticking it out no matter how heavy it gets. But real strength is knowing when to release what's already slipping through your hands. It's recognizing when your presence is no longer valued, when your voice is no longer heard, and when your love is being taken for granted. A queen doesn't beg to be appreciated. She doesn't fight for a seat at a table where her worth isn't recognized. She builds her own table, sets her own place, and keeps her crown on straight while doing it. An exit made in silence hits differently. It unsettles people. It makes them pause, because they were expecting a breakdown. In breakdown, they were ready for the confrontation, the drama, the back and forth, but instead she chooses to walk, not out of weakness, but out of certainty. She knows she doesn't have to destroy the room to leave it. She simply rises and walks out with dignity. That kind of exit leaves an impression. It makes people reflect. It makes them realize what they lost. Not just a person, but a presence, a peace, a power that once held them steady. Walking away like a queen isn't about pride. It's about self-respect. It's about honoring your boundaries even when they hurt. It's about knowing that not everyone is meant to go with you to the next level. And that's okay. Letting go isn't always about dislike or anger. Sometimes it's about love. Love for yourself. Love for your growth. Love for your future. A queen knows she can love someone and still leave them. She understands that love is not always enough when respect is missing. She doesn't need to prove her value by staying in a place that no longer serves her. Her silence doesn't mean she doesn't care. It means she cares more about her peace than someone else's comfort. And that's the difference between a girl who's learning and a woman who knows. The girl wants closure. The queen is the closure. She doesn't wait around to be validated. She doesn't hand her power to someone else's opinion. Her walk away is final, not because she's cold, but because she's healed. There's something sacred about a quiet exit. It's a declaration that no longer needs to be spoken. It's not loud, but it's unforgettable. It's the kind of departure that echoes in the silence long after she's gone. Not because she vanished, but because she rose. And when a queen rises, the whole room feels it. You don't need closure. You need distance. That truth can be hard to swallow, especially when your heart is still tangled in memories, questions, and what-ifs. We're taught to believe that closure is a final step, that is something someone else gives us to help us move on. We wait for it, crave it, sometimes even beg for it, thinking that if we just understood why, if we just heard the right words, if we could just make sense of the ending, we'd finally be able to let go. But the reality is, closure is not something you're given, it's something you decide. Distance is what brings clarity. It's what allows the fog to lift, the emotions to settle, the truth to rise to the surface without the noise of someone else's presence clouding your perspective. When you step back, when you create space, when you stop checking in, stop reading between the lines, stop hoping for that final conversation, that's when you start to see things clearly. You start to realize that the closure you were waiting for wasn't really about them explaining anything. It was about you needing permission to stop holding on. And that permission doesn't have to come from them. It can come from you. Closure often becomes a trap. It keeps you tethered to the past. It makes you believe the story can't end until you both agree on the final chapter. But life doesn't work like that. People ghost. People lie. People leave without explanation. And if you wait on them to give you peace, you'll stay stuck in a place they already left behind. That's not healing. That's self-abandonment disguised as hope. Distance, on the other hand, is an act of power. It's not about bitterness or avoidance. It's about protection. It's choosing to remove yourself from the environment that kept you small, confused, hurt, or doubting yourself. It's allowing yourself to breathe without their presence pressing against your healing. It's giving your soul the room it needs to recalibrate, to remember who you are, and to rebuild without interference. The truth is, some people will never give you the answers you seek because they don't have the emotional capacity, the courage, or the respect to face what they've done. And you have to be okay with that. You have to stop waiting for them to grow enough to say what they should have said when it mattered. Your healing can't depend on their maturity. Your peace can't be postponed until they apologize. When you choose distance, you choose to stop participating in a story that's already over. You choose to let the unanswered questions remain unanswered. You choose to stop opening a wound just to see if it still hurts. That's when real healing begins. Not when someone else tells you it's over, but when you decide it is. When you no longer need their voice to silence your doubt. When you realize that your peace was never waiting on their words, it was waiting on your decision to walk away.